cousin falsely accused me of SA. Now my family is finally contacting me after almost 10 years. I grew up in what was probably the most normal of normal households. Parents worked a lot but still managed to care for me and my 3 older sisters. We were never super close as a family but never had any issues either. Same goes for my extended family. They always lived a few hours away but we saw each other during summer holidays or Christmas and always got along great. But when we got older, we naturally grew apart as everyone had their own lives. I'm 31 now. In 2014, when I was 22 and attending uni, I got a phone call from my mother that turned my life upside down. I remember I didn't even answer at first because I was gaming with friends, but she called again immediately after the first call. This was an unwritten rule in the family: if you call twice like that, it's important, like someone died important. So when she called again, I excused myself and answered, only to hear chaos in the other end, like people were arguing. But when my mom realized I had answered, it sounded like she went to another room and closed the door. I just asked what was going on, and I heard she was crying. My memory of this conversation is a bit blurry, but she basically asked me if I had something to confess to regarding my cousin, Eve, on my mom's side, who is 7 years younger than me, 15 at the time. At that point, I hadn't even seen Eve for several years. I just said no and asked what this is about. She just cried even harder and started accusing me of sexually abusing Eve when we were children, that he had told everything to my sister, and that my sister told my mother and my aunt. He had told them that back when she was 9 and I was 16, she'd been playing in my room when I came in and started feeling her under her clothes and kissing her. My mother screamed at me to say something, but I couldn't even speak. It was also absurd. I remember thinking that must be some bad joke. The last thing I remember saying was that it's not true and that he is lying, but then my mom goes on saying that he gave such a detailed description of where and how. Then she kept asking something like, "Did you do this? Did you do this?" And I just screamed back at her, "No," each time. It all ended with my mom putting me on speaker, and both my mom and dad saying that they don't want anything to do with me and never to contact them again. 2 of my sisters texted me later that day, pretty much saying that I'm disgusting, and then blocked me. I know it's weird, but after that call, I went to have a long shower. To this day, I still don't know why I did that. After calming down, I started calling and texting everyone, even Eve. No one answered, and the ones who hadn't blocked my number by then quickly did. So the only thing I heard back was from my father, who texted me to stop contacting them and that they need to heal. That was 9 years ago, and I haven't spoken to anyone in my family since that day. To say this messed me up is an understatement. I was living in a haze for weeks after that and hardly ate. It didn't help that this was right before I was supposed to defend my bachelor's thesis, and I was already stressed out. Luckily, my co-writer said something was up and saved me by controlling the conversation, so I got the easy parts. Without him, I surely would have failed. Needless to say, no one came to my graduation. Then started the worst period of my life. I spent the first year expecting the cops to knock on my door and arresting me for sexual abuse. I didn't land any jobs, just living off my saved money. I drank a lot, and I also grew resentful and violent. The only reason I didn't hurt anyone is that no one was around. My neighbor called the cops on me once after I had smashed a glass, but I managed to convince the officers that I had just dropped it, and they went away since there were no others inside my apartment. Instead of sleeping, I spent my nights planning how I could hurt Eve and make sure no one ever found out, even thinking how I could actually do the things she'd accused me of, but much worse. I know I'm not proud of that. I landed my first real job in my field in late 2015. Only then did things start to improve. I focused all my time on my job as it gave me something.